Hello, everybody. It's Kateri,
And Owen,
and welcome to the Soothsayer's Tea Tarot Talk. The lovers.
the
Will
lovers.
you be my lover?
I, oh my god, this card, man, it never comes up for me. It really doesn't. Like, I swear to God, I've seen this card like 6 times in my life.
Yeah, this card, definitely it comes up for me in very interesting ways, which I'll get into when it comes to our experiences. But yeah, just it's a very interesting card because it seems like it'd be very obviously about romance when it's not quite that. It's more or less about choices, harmony, union, pulling together, especially two opposites.
Yeah. I definitely see this card sort of misinterpreted a lot. I see people will very much see that as like a one true love card. And like, it can be. Like, there are situations where that is applicable. But I feel like most of the time that's really not what it's talking about.
Yeah. When this card Yeah, this card is just it's an interesting one because I think what's really important is talking about the history of it because I feel that the RWS and the more traditional, whether it be like Marseille or other versions of this lovers card, kind of contradict itself a little bit. So I think it's important to kind of understand where it's both coming from because even though the RWS system makes it a little more obvious that this is Adam and Eve and this is like a fated like relationship, it still has those traditional meanings, which is more or less choice. And getting at that again in more traditional like interpretations of the card or depictions of the card, it was not really about um, like sexual pursuits or romantic pursuits or anything of the sort. It was about actually making an ethical choice because if we're looking at some of the parallels from the Hierophant, the card before it, and if we're looking at the Fool's Journey, the fool at this point has learned what everything he needs to know traditionally and the right way to do things, and now he's out in the world, and basically the fool or the seeker is there to kind of explore his own options and emotions at this point, because traditionally the card always had a traditionally a male figure choosing between two women.
Yeah. Um that is very much how I would describe it too. I'd very much I would sort of see it described as the fool's like emotional journey, but that's I don't love that explanation that I've just given,
Yeah.
but I'm going to stick with it. I'm going to stick with that one.
And I think that our interpretation of this card is going to be very clearly on our experiences as well. There might
Mhm.
be practitioners listening to this or other advisors or teachers or whoever they how they want to claim themselves that would describe this card as very much so a card of romance and connections. And this card is about connections, but I don't find is as sexy as people want to make it out to be. Really.
Yeah. For me, definitely it's not the card that like if I pulled the lovers in a reading, I wouldn't go, okay, meant to be together. Like for me, that would be the Ten of Cups or the Two of Cups. Like there's better cards in the tarot that represent loving romantic relationships than the lovers. I feel like the lovers is just too broad for that. I don't think any of the major arcana can represent just one thing. And so I feel like the lovers is just it's a little bit too big for that. I feel like it's a little bit reductionist to say that it's just about
Yeah.
romance.
With that being said, I think we're minimizing that it definitely can be about romance. I think the reason why we're minimizing
Hmm.
it is because often this is what the first reaction to it is, right? And I think we just want to make it clear that it's only romantic in its sense that because it has the again the kind of the essence of unity and harmony. Romance has to have those things to be able to be successful. So it's not that this cannot be associated with romance, it's that it's not just associated with romance. But if it's
Yeah.
going to be romance, you'd like to see this card show up for sure.
Oh yeah, 100%. Like it's a very good omen for a relationship. It's just not it wouldn't be my go-to card if I was doing some spell work and I wanted to take out some cards and like sort of, I guess, choose cards based on their correspondences, and I wanted to manifest a relationship type situation for myself. I don't necessarily think the lovers would be my first choice. I feel like it'd be in the mix somewhere, but it wouldn't be top of the pile.
Yeah, and I would say the same. If we want to take a look at
Hmm.
some parallels, we
Hmm.
do have the lovers is associated with death and judgment as well. If we do line it up like we discussed right in our first episode, is so there is a lot of when you're making choices and when things kind of come together, they can either be very destructive or they can be um, basically a new beginning. So there's a lot of kind of things that you have to consider the lover's card. It's honestly it's I don't want to say it's a scary card, but it's a lot more it has a lot more depth than people think it does.
I thought you said death,
Death.
and I was
No,
like, yeah,
depth.
the lovers. The lovers means
Yeah.
death. If you pull the lovers, you will die within, I don't know,
So
6 minutes.
6.5 minutes. But and if
Yes.
we're looking at the two cards beside it again, the Hierophant is that it's very the Hierophant is the most unsexual card on God's green earth. Like the Hierophant is as sexy as a pap smear, seriously. Well, the Lovers is very much so again. It's fresh and it's new. It's still in that first list of beginning cards. It's still a very young card. So it's the first big choice that the Fool has to make. And then the card afterward, which is the Chariot. This is where we're going to start walking into more mastery and control. And then the additional cards in the major arcana is going to start actually really connecting into deeper themes. So we're getting closer to like more basic themes of life. And the Lovers is getting closer to the end, but it is the first kind of major choice that the Seeker is going to make, which is basically choosing an outside source to kind of complete them. And this is where I always want to make it clear that it's not always about relationships because it could be about a career that really fits you. It could be a hobby that fulfills you. It could be a lot of things that just come together in a way that works. It's like peanut butter and jelly.
Yeah, I would actually 100% agree with that. I think very much the Lovers is the first card in the Fool's journey where the Fool makes an external decision, and it's less so about working on themselves and learning life's lessons for themselves, and is more so about putting those lessons into action in the real world. Um, and like choosing, like you were saying, this partnership, this union, this thing to bring into their life that is going to be stable and is going to be good for them.
Yeah, it really does almost like represent external balance. There's other cards that
Hmm.
do have like internal balances, whether emotional balances and such. This is very much so external balance because it is two very opposite halves, and we will discuss it in the feature episode where we're going to discuss this discuss divine gender. But for the sake of this episode, I just going to use this as a almost a description and a parallel. It's very intentional that there's a male and female figure on the card. It's very intended to represent two very opposites that come together in a union, and it is quote unquote intended to happen, right? And that's why I really appreciate a lot of cards nowadays are kind of pulling away from just male female. It just you can
Hmm.
be it doesn't have to be a gender thing. It just means two people who are almost opposite of each other.
Yeah. Um, yeah, I don't have anything else to say on that. We've summed it up pretty well, I think. I really really like when people use animal imagery for the
Yes.
Lovers. Like it brings me so much joy to see like a cat and a dog for the Lovers,
Yes.
or two birds of prey and some like stuff like
Yeah,
that.
bird or beast. Yeah.
Mhm.
Yeah,
It bringeth the joy.
exactly. I appreciate that as well. And again, I actually do like when the lovers are romantic too. I think it's very
You
sweet. I
traitor.
know, such a hussy. No, but I do like it when it does indicate like a little bit of romance there. I do like cards where it has the three figures, where it has the male seeker choosing between two women because he's choosing between virtue or vice. Like there's a lot of different ways that this card can be interpreted, and I really enjoy it because out of all the major arcana, this is probably for me the most wild card, if that makes any sense, because it can be taken a few different ways. But its really core tenets is harmony and union.
Yeah, I see what you mean. It's very contextual, this card. Like, obviously, all of the cards are gonna like depend on the context and the cards around them, but I feel like the lovers specifically is just extremely contextual. Um, I also really enjoy when they keep the original snake
Yeah,
imagery when in like new things to card, because to me that's very important, because in my experiences with this card, it is almost always been about like an interloper, or like someone who wishes to end like a union that you have that is beneficial to you. And this could be a relationship, this could be sabotage at work, all that sort of stuff, but for me this card quite often means sabotage.
funny enough, yeah. So we talk about our experiences here. So I'm curious of how that happens. I'm assuming it's probably because it's coming off like the more traditional pre Rider-Waite Smith, where there's like a choice between two people. So at that point, if there's an
Hmm.
interloper, that means the person that you're with is sussing out options, which is not always a good thing.
Yeah. um or just generally someone else, like an external force who wants to break up this little union and just doesn't really have your best interests at heart. um I see it a lot. Like, I really, this is why I really enjoy the depiction of the lovers in the Lion Strider Tarot, because it's two storks, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
um and they are a little bit on fire, and they are
Just a little.
just a little. And they've got very, very distinct facial expressions. Like, you can very clearly tell the personality of these storks based on their facial expressions, and I find that just really amazing artistry. And below the storks is, of course, apples and a snake sort of weaving its way through. And I guess just a little bit out of sight, not really expected. They aren't really aware of the snake, but the snake is very clearly there to cause some trouble.
Yeah. Yeah, and
Hmm.
I don't have a very particular favorite lovers card in any of my decks. Well, maybe I should rephrase. There is one in the Alchemical Tarot by Robert M. Place, where he has an alternative to the lovers card, and there are just they're unioning. They're unioning really good. There is legs up and there's face down. And I nearly died laughing because it is accurate, really, because it's less about the actual sexual nature of it and more about that full on we're coming together in the most raw sense of the word. From my experience, this card does not come up in a lot of my love readings. It comes up a lot in my business readings, and it's always when it's coming
Mhm.
to any type of collaborative work or starting new projects. For my clients, this card is almost a stalker card for anybody who's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, I can see that a lot. I don't really get it a lot in business readings, but if I did, for me, it would probably be something like that, or it would be something along the lines of sabotage at work, someone trying to make some sort of deal against you or paint you in a bad light. I think as we move through the major arcana, we're discovering that I have a very negative view on all of the cards.
And that's why I'm trying to like, this is supposed to be harmony and like union. You're just like, somebody is stab you right in the back.
Yeah, I don't know. Sometimes things just seem a little bit too perfect with the lovers for me. Sometimes I'm a little bit like,
Is it the card itself, or
mm.
is there always the surrounding cards and context that make it that way?
It's the
Okay,
surrounding
cool.
cards and context. It's not yeah. Like, I don't like look at the lovers and immediately go backstabbing bitch.
Okay.
It's just situationally the cards around it have also been like, yeah, backstabbing
Okay.
bitch.
Okay, I just wanted to make it like make that clear. Yeah.
Yes.
But in my case it is very very clearly a union thing, right? It's going to be a harmony thing. It's always about usually finding a business partner, and it's people come in to me and it's like, "Hey, I'm looking to start a business with my business partner. I want to see what's happening." When the lovers comes up, it's always a very very good omen. It's a very, very good omen when it
Mm-hmm.
comes up, especially anybody looking to go to business with people. I'm like, yeah, you know what? Perfect. And this is why I wanted to make clear when we first started this episode. I'm like, it's not always about getting down and dirty, because you don't want to be screwing your business partner, especially when they're like your sister or something. Like, it's just straight.
Oh my god.
Right?
Yeah, I love that. I love the look on people's faces when they come in to ask about their business partner and you pull out the lovers
Yeah.
and they're like,
It happens, and everyone looks at me like, I'm not here for that." I'm like, "Well, it doesn't mean that. It does." And then
yeah.
I have to usually pause the session, because I'm just like, "Okay, I'm gonna give you a little history lesson of this card before so you understand what I'm talking about, so it doesn't sound like I'm pulling this out of my ass." Because it does mean, again, harmony more than anything. Harmony, and again,
Hmm.
the reason why it works so well in love readings and why it can mean romance and love is because harmony is a requirement for these things. They're absolutely required. So, but I do want people to understand that just because this card comes up does not mean you have to immediately jump to fucking. It doesn't work that way. It has,
Yeah, in fact, I would honestly, if that is not already part of your relationship and you pull the lovers, I would not recommend trying to make that part of your
yeah,
relationship because right now like you are at harmony with each other and you are in balance and everything is sort of flowing nicely. And then you try to introduce sex to this relationship, and sometimes it can get a little bit
yeah.
volatile.
There's actually other
And
cards that represent sex, and this is actually not really it. Really,
yeah, yeah,
I actually, this
I would
card
agree.
comes up a
I
lot in best friend readings too. Like when I get people coming in,
yeah.
it's like a pairs, like best friends, like, oh my god, we're best friends. Lover comes up quite a bit. And I find it's actually
Hmm.
quite sweet when it does, because I'm like, you guys are gonna be best friends forever. And they're like, oh my god, we're best friends forever. And like those, the lovers, when it comes up to those types of relationships, like I can see them both being like 85 and like still like tearing ass and causing
Bickering like an
bickering, yeah,
old
and
married
causing
couple.
trouble
Hmm.
for like the whole old age home. Like it's a great card. It really is a fantastic card. um and I think that a lot of times I see it abused in a lot of type of readers that like, oh, this means twin flames and all that, and it's just like, no, it doesn't mean that. It just means a beautiful connection with people.
Not twin
I
flames.
know.
Shut a fuck up. Oh my god. I can't believe you would even say that in my good Christian podcast.
You're just like, get out. Count podcast
um
canceled for the 80th time.
Oh my god.
We haven't
Listen,
made that joke in a minute.
I was just about to say I feel like it's been a while since we've cancelled the podcast. What happened? Are we starting to agree with each other?
Oh Lord. So pop culture connections.
Pop culture
Honestly,
connections.
let's be realistic. Any romance, really, as long as it's like, as
Yeah.
long as it's like a harmonious one. Like we're not talking about like the dramas. We're talking about,
We're not talking about Ross and Rachel.
no.
We're talking about, oh my god, Marshall and Lily from How I Met Your
Yeah,
Mother.
it's like, it's gonna be like sweet. It's gonna be mom and pop. Like any like really
Hmm.
sweet romance that everything goes right for them. Um,
Yeah.
let's be realistic. It does represent that.
Hmm. And in a non-romantic sense, we would also see it quite a bit with Holt and Jake from Brooklyn Nine-Nine.
Yes.
There's very much that relationship there of yes, they will bicker with each other and they will irritate each other, but there's still that very deep and clear connection. And like if the other one needed help, that person would be there in the instant. Like there is that sort of unspoken bond between them, even though they bicker and they maybe even like they disagree and they fight. Like there's still that connection and that trust.
Yes. And I to kind of go off that one, I think that any kind of bromance that you see, like I'm sure like if you see like even in real life, like those two
Mm.
guys in high school that would not like, you'd never see them without each other, and they would just always hang out, and they'd be like, bruh, and they would just do
Plot twist, they were
they were lovers.
lovers.
They might not have been doing
They
it.
were
Like
lovers.
bromances are definitely like the actual couldn't like they're that's a lover's card right there, because they always do everything together. They're always getting shit together. They always like go to,
Two hippo best
yeah,
friends are the lovers.
yeah. Like bromances are like a good example of lovers because they're so obsessed with each other. but that's sorry, just what
Yeah,
you said
the
just
himbo besties. No, 100%, I agree. The himbo
those
besties.
besties are like 100%. Sorry that just when you said that, I'm like, you know what? That's another good example. It's just
Yeah,
himbos.
all the himbos in your life.
It's true.
And the other one that we would sort of see would be Katara and Aang from Avatar: The Last Airbender. I almost said, I don't know what I almost just said, but it wasn't Avatar: The Last Airbender. It was almost like a combination of Avatar: The Last Airbender and How to Train Your Dragon. I don't know where that came from in my little mind,
Hmm.
but anyway, Katara and Aang, we very much see that there is, yes, okay, we do see Aang have a crush on Katara throughout a lot of the series, and possibly, if I 100% remember correctly, which I don't know if I do because I didn't watch the new one, Legend of Korra, I think they get married. I think.
I think so.
But in the first show, like in the actual Avatar: The Last Airbender show, they are very much just friends, and they are sort of naive and young, and there's nothing romantic or sexual about this relationship. Like they're children, but they're very close, and they know each other very well, and they trust each other, and they annoy the shit out of each other. And but that union is there, and that balance, and that, like, we see it all the time, especially in the beginning, in the first season or the second season, whatever it is, where Katara is like the only one who can bring Aang back from the Avatar state and stuff like that. There's that deep connection and union between the two of them is a source of power for both of them.
Yeah, for sure. And before we get into the next like pop culture connection, one thing that it really kind of explains the lovers very well is that its leading sign is Gemini. So
Hmm.
if anybody knows anything about Geminis, it's like that kind of energy is in that card. It's very much so like the twinsies, right? For
Hmm.
better or for worse. I just really need to throw that out there. I'm just like, this is a Gemini card
Yeah.
through and through.
No, 100%. You're correct. I agree with that. I was going to mention that earlier, but I hate astrology, and so I deliberately block it out of my mind.
That's fair.
Um,
So the next one that we have, which is funny because it's actually less harmonious and more that this is just a fated union because these people probably shouldn't be together, but they just click. Our
yeah,
good old Miss Catwoman and Mr. Batman.
yeah. I don't watch or read DC, so you're gonna have to lead with this one, bestie.
Yeah, it's fine. No, so the thing is that Batman has a stick up his ass. He really cares about justice, while Catwoman really likes stealing shit. And every time he tries to like arrest her and get her, she's just like, I ain't doing that because I'm too cute. And then it always becomes a thing that they're working together, but they're so polar opposites because she's a petty criminal and he is like the beacon of law in Gotham, right?
Hmm.
And but they always end up working together or connecting together because they're both really messed up people. Because let's be realistic, they're both really weird, like BDMS,
Yeah,
like
yeah.
furries.
No, they're both weird, fucked up. We don't need to mince words
Yeah,
here. There's definitely some kind of kink happening in this
they're
situation.
dressed as cats and bats. It's a furry thing. Let's be realistic.
Yeah,
Um, and
latex cats
latex.
and latex bats. Like there's some issues there, and I think they existed long before Mr. fucking Batman's parents died.
Yes.
Because they're like, listen, some of us have dead parents, and that does not make
Nobody becomes a bondage
that.
furry because of it.
Anyway, moving so swiftly on.
But really though, this is a good like example of the lovers card where they will always come together because they are really two halves, two opposite halves of one whole. um, they both represent this kind of chaotic thing on the opposite sides of things, but when you kind of peel back all those layers, they're kind of the same, and that's why they keep coming together in their friggin' black
I
leather and fucking
I've
cat
been
ears.
sitting here for 20 seconds. I heard you say two halves of one whole, and I was literally sitting here for 20 seconds like, whole? Hole? Like
you you
HOLE?
slut.
And I was like,
You slut.
what?
Oh, and you're such a slut.
No, listen, I'm just an idiot.
I mentioned bondage furries once, and then you're done for.
Moving so swiftly on to our next pop culture connection, which is Ben and Klaus from Umbrella Academy, I think we
Yes,
said, didn't
yes, we
we?
did.
Yeah.
Because that's like the complete opposite of bondage furries and everything to do with their brotherly love.
Oh my God. Yeah, I mean, the thing is, they have their fights and they definitely don't agree with each other a lot of the time. At least I'm not gonna lie, guys, I don't remember season 2. I'm gonna have to rewatch it before season 3 comes out.
Mhm.
So I'm thinking very much season 1 here, Ben and Klaus, where they do fight and they are was Ben even in season 1?
Yes, so Ben was less of a physical presence and more of a thought
Literal
in Claus's head.
yeah. Well, yeah, because Ben's dead. Like Ben was a ghost. That was the thing. Because Klaus can speak to dead
Yeah.
people, isn't
Yes.
it?
So that was the whole thing.
Yeah.
So with that all being said, so the reason why that is kind of a connection there, because even though they annoy the shit out of each other, like this is really like again, the reason why they work together is because physically they can get so much more done together. And that's where we're kind of
Hmm.
going into the harmony portion of things is that, and I like this connection because if we're talking like again on a business type reading where I'm like, hey, this person might annoy the hell out of you because you're just not very compatible personality types, but if you work together you're going to get that lawsuit taken care of, right?
Hmm.
And Ben and Claus is a really good example of that because together they are ridiculously powerful. And it's that
Hmm.
level of union that they don't necessarily have to like each other, but they're connected in a way that is almost like astronomically
It's
powerful.
too beneficial for them not to be
Yeah.
connected. Like for that, like they're like they fight like shit, but also if they were without each other, they'd be fucked.
Yeah. 100%. And this is a really good example of the lovers in a way that you wouldn't be able to see it any other way. Probably as individuals, they wouldn't be as powerful as they were together.
Hmm. Yeah. And with that, I think we can conclude our lovers tarot
Our
talk.
lovers tarot talk.
Our
Yes.
lovers tarot talk.
Lovers. Lovers.
I will never talk about this card again. Watch me. Watch me completely remove the lovers from my. Watch me completely remove the lovers from my decks and
The
everything.
amount of threats that we do against ourselves and to others. Like, I love how we're like, I'm going to remove this card from my deck. Like, we think that people are going to care. They're like, go ahead. And we're just like, you're supposed to be
Yeah.
offended by this.
I like how in like the first or second episode I talked about how like vile I like thought it was to remove cards from decks and how I think it's like 100% spiritual bypassing, and yet every episode since I've threatened to remove a card from my deck.
You're like, actually, I don't connect to it. It's not that I don't connect to it. I just hate it.
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, this isn't me not connecting to the card. I think it's a bitch. It can go.
It's just terrible. So, with that being said, my name's Kateri. You can find me on Venoxis.net for tarot readings or Venoxis on Instagram mostly. I also run the Soothsayers T Instagram, which is Soothsayer_T. And
Don't forget about Facebook,
oh
Grandma.
no, I don't even like listen. Facebook only exists because it auto connects.
Hmm.
And
Hmm.
Facebook, I
Hmm.
guess.
No, look, I believe you. I do. I really do. And
You
with that being
just don't
said,
respect it.
yeah, I have been Owen and Kylak. You can find me on Twitter. You can find me on Instagram, and you can find me running the Soothsayers T Twitter over at soothsayers_T. I think.
It's one of those.
Yeah, you can find all of my links in the description, including a link to my website where you can buy a reading from me if you so choose.
Yeah, if you feel like it.
If you feel like it, if you think it's a good idea. Oh
Exactly.
my god, wait, no, you can't. My shop's been out of stock for like 3 weeks.
Wow.
Hold on. I've accidentally taken a small break while I redesign my entire website. So keep in mind that you actually won't be able to do that. Go buy a reading off Kateri instead.
Well, thank you. Thank you for the vote of confidence. All
Yes.
right, everybody. We'll see you next episode.
We will see you on Friday. Bye.
Bye.